What's going on, guys? You already know who it is, man. It's your boy, Jerry Fit, and we are back to react with what's new on the tube, man. Hey, you already know what we got. We got a special video today, man. Infographics. Hey, they turned it up, bro. They took a little break for a week, man. I mean, I don't know if they really took a break, but, we try to only react to interesting sounding videos, man. We're trying to bring you the most diverse content on the tube, man. Most consistent reactors on the tube as well, man. We're posting every single day, bro. We've only been posting for a month, but we're already at 80 subs, bro. Thank you guys for tuning in, man. We're just going to keep running it up. So, hey, we got 6 missing person cases so twisted they'll never be solved. I think these are some real stories, man. I fuck with when Infographics do these kind of story times. We're going to be on these and reacting to them. And, yeah, you guys know we like conspiracies. We like all these kinds of spooky stories and shit. So, yeah, we're just going to jump into it, man. Offer our opinions where we see fit. And you guys know the deal, bro.
A girl hanging out with her friends, children frolicking on the beach. One of the most powerful men in New York. They could be more different individuals, but they all have one thing in common. They vanished into thin air and were never seen again. Years or even decades later, find out who they were and maybe where they went on this episode of the Infographic Show. The most disturbing stories of people going missing, number 3. Number 6, Brandon Swanson.
Oh, this is our 3rd edition.
And life was pretty good for Brandon Swanson. The 19-year-old had graduated from high school and was studying wind turbines at a community and technical college in Canby, Minnesota. Classes had finished for the year, and he did what any college boy would do. He partied. On May 13th, he hit up 2 different house parties, reportedly drinking a little, but not enough to be visibly drunk. Still determined to make it home to his parents that night, he got behind the wheel, regardless of whether he was over the legal limit. And that is where things started to get strange. His hometown was 30 miles away from Canby, and he was leaving close to midnight. It should have taken less than an hour to get home, but around 2 a.m. his parents received a call. The drive hadn't gone well. Brandon had driven his Chevy into a ditch. Fortunately, he was unharmed, but the car was stuck, so he asked his parents to come pick him up. They got in their pickup truck and headed out into the night to rescue their son. Although the cell reception wasn't great, they managed to keep in touch with him the whole time. Brandon stayed with his car, flashing the lights to let his parents know where he was. But they would never find him. His parents thought they knew where he was, but never came across his car. Frustrated, Brandon said he was going to walk towards some lights in the distance. He believed that he was near a small town called Lynn, and agreed to meet his father at a bar parking lot on the outskirts of town. As Brandon walked, his father stayed on the line, and then 47 minutes into the call, Brandon suddenly yelled in shock.
Oh, shit.
He went silent. Frantic, his father hung up and tried to call him back, but Brandon never answered the call, and he never made it to the
Oh, shit,
so
bro.
Where did Brandon Swanson go? That morning, his parents reported him missing, but police in Lynn weren't interested at first.
Bro.
Brandon was an adult, and college students wandered off.
Hey, man, yeah, you guys gotta be careful, man. When you're partying in college, bro, I see way too many stories. I mean, just being a college graduate myself, man, obviously I also experienced and saw people partying. I mean, I went to UMass Amherst, so you guys already know, man. They don't call it the zoo for no reason. But yeah, man, it's just sad when we see stories about kids getting like hammered or doing all kinds of stuff and then just wandering off, man. Hey, man, you gotta be responsible whenever you're doing that shit. Make sure you're always aware of your surroundings and, dude, like, stay responsible, man. It's just like, why do you not want to know, like, where you are? You know what I mean? It's just sounds stupid to me, man. But I mean, also, I get it. You know what I'm saying? College students, freedom.
That morning, they began a search and found no sign of Brandon. The sheriff's office obtained the cell phone records and discovered the first truly disturbing sign of the case. Brandon's cell phone was last tracked to the town of Taunton, around 25 miles from Lynn.
Bro.
How did Brandon get so far from where he thought he was? It wouldn't be long before Brandon's car was found in a ditch, exactly as he described, but it wasn't close to the location he described. There were now multiple police departments involved in the case, and they carefully examined the car. It was caught in a ditch, unable to pull itself out of the incline, but it wasn't damaged. There was no sign of foul play in the car, so the working theory was that Brandon had just gotten frustrated and started walking, and there was no way of knowing where he walked to. Larger search parties were assembled, and his cell phone was tracked through the nearby area. It pinged off a cell towers and led to a nearby farm in Taunton. Dogs picked up a scent, but lost it near the Yellow Medicine River. The trail seemed to enter the water and vanish.
The river, bro, yeah.
Especially wide, and at its deepest it reached around 15 feet. That means Brandon may have been able to walk through it, especially if he was trying to take a shortcut.
15?
But if the water level was high that night, it's just as likely he could have slipped, lost his footing, and drowned. And the only thing more unsettling than evidence of a disappearance is no evidence at all. The original search didn't find any sign of Swanson, and with no sign of foul play, efforts were quickly decreased. But the Swansons didn't give up on their son, leaving their porch light on every night as a signal of their hope that they'll get answers. Searches would resume in the fall as fields were harvested and grounds were cleared. Dogs searched for human remains until the winter, and again in the spring. And while they would occasionally pick up something, no remains were ever found. With no concrete evidence, the most prevailing theory is that Brandon drowned, but hard answers are still impossible to find.
I'm assuming he drowned, bro.
Out of the tragic case.
Too hammered and drowned.
Got what that callous cop had told her, and that Brandon's right to be missing may have delayed the initial search.
630,000 reported missing people.
The search for a missing adult, making it as speedy as it is with missing children. And in July 2009, the bill known as Brandon's Law would take effect and revolutionize coordination between agencies when dealing with missing persons cases in Minnesota. But some cases have been open for far longer than Brandon's. Number 5. Lorraine Ron. In the 1980s, free-range parenting was much more common, and often out of necessity. Hardworking parents would often have no choice but to trust their teenage and preteen kids to make good life choices after school until the work whistle blew. But that would change in the coming years, amid a wave of disappearances and kidnappings. And one of the strangest cases happened in Manchester, New Hampshire in 1980. Lorraine Ron was a 14-year-old girl primarily raised by her single mother, Judith. She was known as an outgoing girl and a good student, at least on the surface. People reported she was falling in with a bad crowd and had started to smoke weed and drink. And that might be what led her into trouble.
Shame, man. Shame.
And Lorraine was staying home alone. Her mother was out of town attending her boyfriend's tennis
How old
game,
was she?
and Lorene took advantage of this, inviting two friends, a boy and a girl, back to the apartment. They drank a little. Lorene reportedly had a connection at the local convenience store where she would help out in exchange for wine coolers. It was after midnight when strange things started happening. The boy Lorene was with reported hearing strange voices in the hallways of the apartment. He became disturbed and left through the back door, thinking that Judith was returning. He didn't want to get caught and get Lorene in trouble, but it wasn't Judith at all. Lorene's mother returned home in the early morning, and as soon as she entered the building, she noticed something was off. The apartment building's light bulbs had been unscrewed, leaving all 3 floors in complete darkness. Her apartment door was unlocked, and as she peered into her daughter's room, it seemed occupied. But her boyfriend noticed the back door was unlocked. When she checked the bed,
Wait,
it
what?
was the third girl who had fallen asleep, but had no idea where Lorene was. She claimed the missing girl had been in bed with her, but left to sleep in the living room. She remembered nothing unusual about the night, but Lorene was nowhere to be found. Judith frantically called her family members to see if Lorene was with them. None of Lorene's possessions were missing, and there were no signs of a struggle. She flagged down a police car to report her daughter missing, and a massive search began. The initial theory was that Lorene had run away, and they quickly picked up clues leading to that theory. A bus company employee said he sold a ticket to a girl that resembled Lorene, and the driver said he dropped her off in Boston, but she didn't come home, and there was no sign of her. When the bus driver was interviewed again weeks later, he wasn't as confident that it was wrong he had seen. Interest soon turned to another girl, Rachel Garden, who disappeared from Newton, New Hampshire months earlier.
What?
It was one of a streak of disappearances and killings in the area that would ultimately be traced to the suspected serial killer, Terry Rasmussen. But there has been no evidence that links him to Ron's disappearance.
Wow.
The police have never conclusively stated that they believed she was murdered. In fact, the evidence may point in the opposite direction. In October 1980, Judith received strange phone charges from California, a state she had never lived in and had no connections to. Had Lorene made it all the way across the country? And was she calling to seek help? Later, an investigator from an organization that helped runaways, Carol Jensen, spoke to a physician who claimed he may have seen Ron at his clinic. And through the next year, Judith started receiving mysterious phone calls by someone who never spoke, simply listening on the phone. These calls were especially common during the festive season, and while there was no hard evidence, some people wouldn't give up the fight. Jensen was one of the people most involved in the case. She would visit California in 1986 to investigate the motels Lorene may have called from. She found that the motels had a seedy reputation for criminal activity, and along the way there were more unexplained incidents. A childhood friend of the girl received a call from someone claiming to be her. In 1988, a witness claims to see someone in Anchorage, Alaska, who matched her description. But Lorene Ron was never seen up close again, and no one knows if she simply disappeared or was taken. Sometimes someone who seems to have everything can have it fall apart in a second. Number 4, Logan Schneiderlin.
I haven't heard about none of these cases so far.
Life was smiling down on him. He was a star football player and a model student, and everyone thought that he would be going on to big things. But behind the football jersey, some dark clouds were gathering. Logan came from a troubled background. His Saudi Arabian father was absent in his life, and his mother eventually gave up custody, leaving him in the care of his grandmother. As a biracial teen, Logan struggled with his identity, something that only deepened after a girl made racist remarks to him. But none of that explains what happened in 2016. Logan graduated from high school in 2015 and went on to Washington State University, 300 miles away from his hometown of Tumwater. But he struggled and dropped out after a year. He returned home living with his grandmother, Ginny Kibo, and his half-sister, Chloe, where he started smoking weed. His grandmother stated that he seemed paranoid and at loose ends. He was working odd jobs, and on May 19th, his grandmother reported he seemed more nervous and focused than usual as he set out for work. But he would never get to his job. The last thing Logan said to Kibo before he set out was that he had an epiphany. She wanted to know more, but he said that they would talk more later. He didn't return home, and when she tracked his cell phone, it was found to be near Olympia, near where his mother lived. When there was no contact with him, his grandmother filed a missing persons report. But due to Logan being an adult and the police department being closed for the weekend, she had to wait until Monday.
Bro.
She would soon find out that his car had been impounded the day after he disappeared, after being found parked on the highway.
Is that for real, dude? I didn't know police stations close. Like, wait, what?
Sign of the man driving. All of his personal items were found in the car, including his wallet, driver's license, and cash. So whatever happened, it didn't seem like Logan was planning on setting out for a trip. Soon, several witnesses would come forward, saying that they all saw the car at the side of the road, and one woman reported seeing Logan with 2 white men standing near his car. She would drive by later that night and see the car abandoned with the hood lifted. Another strange report described Logan's car initially weaving through traffic before hitting a concrete barrier and stopping. They saw a white man jump out of the car and run out into the woods, but they couldn't see who was driving the car at that point. It was all hands on deck, but answers wouldn't be easy to come by. Police gathered all the reports that they had of unusual activity the night of Logan's disappearance, including one that saw a naked teenager running through the area. While it could have been Logan, the physical descriptions at night weren't clear enough to identify him. Logan's uncle, Mike Ware, was a retired area sheriff, so he took the lead on the initial investigation. The entire area was combed by foot and by air, with a focus on the forest. But Schneiderman had disappeared without a trace, which meant that it was time to start looking at suspects. The initial investigation focused on his cell phone, which had been traced but eventually stopped where his vehicle was found. No signs of his phone were available after that. While there was no clear evidence of foul play, police focused their investigation on Chloe's boyfriend, who had recently moved in. Reportedly, he and Logan had been butting heads, but he cooperated with the investigation and passed a polygraph test, ruling him out. As the officials were coming up empty, the family had hired a private investigator and launched an online campaign seeking answers. Reward funds were raised, and the case was profiled on the Investigation Discovery documentary in 2018.
Oh, shit.
But the evidence was slim, and Logan's case is still considered open. Was it a simple case of an at-loose-ends young man?
What do you guys think, man? Did he go off? Did he run away, or did he get killed?
Not only is there very
I feel like he probably
little in the way of
started tweaking and then died. I probably should pause over this, but I feel like he probably started tweaking and then died doing like tweaker things, you know what I mean? Like he probably accidentally fell off of a building somewhere in like, bro, in the darkest corner of Ohio or
Have
somewhere.
something to do with his vanishing. Not only is there very little evidence in this case, there is precious little in the way of theories, and sometimes time can be a killer, like in this next case. Number 3, Brianna Maitland. The year was 2004, and Brianna Maitland was making ends meet in Burlington, Vermont. The 17-year-old had recently left her parents' farm and started at a new high school. However, her house situation was unsettled, so she dropped out of school, got a job at a local inn, and moved in with a childhood friend. She was trying to complete her GED, but was getting into trouble, having recently been attacked by a former friend at a party. She got away with a concussion, cuts, and a broken nose.
Wow.
The other girl had a criminal complaint filed against her,
Uh-oh.
but no one saw what was coming next. It was March 19th, 2004, and things were looking up for Maitland. She had just taken her GED exam, had lunch with her mother Kelly, and went shopping. At some stage, Brianna noticed something and left the store they were in. She returned later, seeming nervous and shaken. She excused herself, saying she needed to head to work at the Black Lantern Inn and was dropped off at her friend's home. She left a note for her roommate before driving to work in an Oldsmobile owned by her mother. She reportedly had a normal shift at work before driving off, preparing for her second job the next day. It was the last time anyone would ever hear from Brianna Maitland. The next afternoon, a Vermont State Police trooper was sent to check out something unusual. A car had plowed into the side of an abandoned house. The old wooden house was an unconventional local landmark, and it was hard to miss the Oldsmobile in the wall, a piece of plywood covering the car's trunk. An investigation soon found all of the evidence of Maitland's presence: a cigarette, a water bottle, and even 2 of her paychecks still in the car. Wherever Brianna had gone, she had left in a hurry. The police didn't know this was a missing persons case yet and classed it as a drunk driving incident. They impounded the car and took it to a local garage. Because Maitland wasn't expected to be on her way to St. Albans that day, her absence didn't raise any alarms right away. She wasn't reported missing for several days. Her mother didn't even learn her car had been impounded until 5 days later, and her roommate had been away for the weekend. No one grew concerned until the start of the following week. After calling around to friends and family with no luck, her mother Kelly finally filed a missing persons report. Only then did the pieces start falling into place, revealing a more disturbing picture than anyone had expected. But by then it was already too late, and the trail was growing cold. Maitland's parents provided photos of their daughter to the police, and they identified a car. Kelly stated that she didn't believe her daughter was the one who had crashed it. Soon, witnesses started coming in saying that they saw the car but didn't see anyone in it. One reported seeing the turn signal on, which might indicate it had been recently abandoned. A further investigation of the car revealed that many of Maitland's personal items were still in the car, including her glasses and her migraine medication. While police initially thought Maitland might have been a runaway, they reclassified it as a case of foul play.
That's crazy,
That turned the
man.
question to one thing: who would want to kidnap Brianna Maitland? Maitland's parents believed she might have been taken by a gang. She was a trained martial artist and could have fought off one kidnapper. A weapon was launched asking for tips and offering a reward of $20,000, and sure enough, the information started coming in. But the question was, would any of it be credible? One claimed that she was being held against her will in a rented house in Berkshire. The house was raided by police and they found 2 drug dealers from New York, along with a large amount of drugs and paraphernalia, but there was no sign of Brianna. However, it was subsequently discovered that Brianna had been purchasing drugs from the duo before her disappearance, and questions around the men continued to circle. The dealers, Ramon L. Ryans and Nathaniel Charles Jackson, became the prime suspects. An anonymous woman sent in a disturbing affidavit.
That's crazy, bro. Their whole operation just got messed up, bro, because somebody fucking was making fan fiction.
Any of it, and the duo was never charged with causing any harm to Brianna.
I'd be pissed as hell.
People would call the Maitland family claiming to know details of their daughter's death. But was it someone trying to bring a grieving family closure, or a sadist obsessed with the case? And not only was there no evidence of the killing, there was no evidence Brianna was dead. The next big clue in the case came in 2006 when a woman who looked a lot like Brianna was seen on camera at an Atlantic City casino. However, she was never officially identified. 8 years after the disappearance, police investigated a connection to serial killer Israel Keyes, who had been active in Vermont. Keyes was ruled as a suspect not long after he died. The case grew cold, but it didn't die. In 2016, police found new DNA samples in the car, and as late as 2022, they had identified someone linked to the DNA. The person has never been identified, but they were reportedly cooperating with police. And while the authorities and Brianna's family remain active as they seek answers, the young woman at the center of the case has never been seen again. A teenage girl disappearing happens all too often. But what about a famous judge? Number 2, Joseph Force Crater. Judges hold some of the most.
They said a judge got disappeared,
States,
man? Bro, I wonder who he put away. They shouldn't have.
For a few, they rise to even higher heights, sitting on appeals and Supreme Courts. So how could one of those towering figures simply vanish? That's exactly what happened in 1930, when Judge Joseph Force Crater disappeared in one of the most infamous disappearances in New York State history. But there were plenty of strange signs about the judge long before that. Joseph Crater, the son of Irish immigrants, was always an ambitious man. When he saw something he wanted, he did what it took to get it. He once helped his significant other get a divorce and then married her only 7 days after.
Oh my gosh, man.
This level of ambition, it's no surprise
I'm crying, bro.
attorney. He was part of the Tammany Hall political machine, which gave him access to some incredibly powerful figures.
He definitely did something that they didn't like.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who appointed him as a justice of the New York Supreme Court for New York County. It seemed like his trajectory was headed in one direction, up, but it was about to come to a shocking halt. Some interesting details would come to light about Force Crater's appointment to the higher court, including $20,000 of bank withdrawals and liquidating his assets that happened shortly prior. Could he have bought his way into a judgeship? It wasn't clear.
Messed with the wrong people, bro. Didn't pay the right bills.
And the power brokers would be investigated heavily in the years to come. But in July of 1930, Force Crater and his family had something else on their mind: a vacation. The whole clan was headed to their summer cabin in Belgrade, Maine. But midway through the rest and relaxation, things took a sinister turn. Crater got a phone call that seemed to alarm him, and he told his wife that he had to return to New York to straighten those fellows out. Eyewitnesses said he did return to New York and
Bro was obviously involved with the mob and then was trying to make him feel good. He knew his fate, bro. Probably, I'm willing to bet that he took his family on vacation knowing that he had his fate sealed. Probably got the call saying, he needs to come back. He's like, fuck, man, I gotta go out. Gotta go out on top for my family, man. That's tough, man. That's tough, man. We're not buying all this. He got disappeared.
6 days' time. He seemed fine when he left, but when he arrived in New York, he spent hours going through files in his chambers, destroying documents, and having his law clerk cash checks for over $5,000. He and his clerk would then transport locked briefcases back to his apartment. Crater gave his clerk the night off before he reserved a ticket for a Broadway show and had dinner with a friend. And this would be the last time anyone saw Judge Crater alive. The judge was trusted with his own affairs, so it was a while before anyone knew he was missing. He didn't return to Maine, and his wife reached out to friends in New York, but it was only then that people started asking odd questions about his last night. Why did he buy tickets to a show he had reportedly already seen? His dining partners couldn't agree on whether he had taken a taxi or walked away after dinner. And what was all that money for? When he didn't reappear for the reopening of courts in New York on August 25th, everyone realized something was very wrong, but it may have been too late for answers. Police were finally brought in and quickly discovered more unusual things. The judge's safe deposit box was empty, and briefcases were missing. The judge's disappearance was front-page news, and thousands of tips came flooding in. This only complicated matters as most of them had little or false information. As the investigation wore on, it became clear that Judge Forrest Crater had been living a double life. He socialized with showgirls and was likely carrying on multiple affairs.
Doesn't surprise me,
All the
man.
ones that could be found were interviewed, but none of them knew where he had gone, and none were implicated in the disappearance. Which means all that was left was theories. The grand jury wasn't able to lay any charges because there was no proof that the judge was alive or dead. A lawyer hired for Crater's wife implicated one showgirl, June Bryce. It was claimed that she was part of a scheme to blackmail the judge, and the judge was ultimately killed by her gangster boyfriend. And this became part of a pattern. Every lead went back to the various showgirls, with many of them having links to the mob. His jacket was reportedly found in the apartment of a sex worker, Vivian Gordon, who was linked to infamous mobster Jack Legs Gordon. But no answers would be coming, as she was murdered 5 days after her first interview with the police. This would turn into a larger scandal, bringing down a police officer who had been sleeping with her and the mayor who let the corruption flourish under his nose. But
Wow.
no answers wouldn't be coming anytime soon. Crater's wife would find envelopes containing checks, stocks, and bonds in the house 6 months later, but nothing led to the judge's whereabouts. The most common theory is that he was murdered, either by a gangster that he had crossed or by someone trying to blackmail him, possibly with information about how he got his judgeship. Crater would ultimately be declared legally dead 9 years after his disappearance, and the case would be closed 40 years later. But a break in the case would possibly come in 2005, when a 91-year-old woman penned a letter before her death claiming that her husband, along with an NYPD officer and his cabbie brother, had killed Crater. The judge's burial site was supposedly below the boardwalk in Coney Island, and nothing was found. And so it was proven that even a famous man can vanish without a trace. But no case sent shockwaves through an entire nation like this one. Number one.
Last one, man.
Children.
I don't think I've heard about these.
The wave of child vanishings made the United States pivot from free-range parenting to helicopter parenting. But long before that, Australia was dealing with a terrible case of their own. It was 1966, and the Beaumont family was celebrating Australia Day on Glenelg Beach near Adelaide. The charming South Australian town was a popular vacation spot, and parents Grant and Nancy had taken their children, Jane, Arna, and Grant, on a January beach vacation. Grant had to go on a business trip, so he dropped the children off at the beach, and they had a great day. The next morning, they asked their mother if they could visit again. It was only a 5-minute bus ride away. She agreed, letting the eldest child, Jane, lead the way. It was the last time that she would ever see her children. They were expected home on the noon bus, but never arrived. When they didn't return home on the next bus, she told her husband upon his return, and he raced down to the beach. There was no sign of the children. They reported the disappearance to the police, who searched the beach and the streets. The search soon expanded, and within a day, the entire nation was aware of the hunt. Many feared the worst. Had the children been kidnapped by a sinister criminal? Were they even still alive? Surprisingly, the initial reward was only $250 Australian, and soon the tips came rolling in. A woman told the police that she had spoken to 3 kids who matched the description that day, and the nearby Padawalonga boat haven was drained to check if they drowned. There was no sign of the children, but police soon started to zero in on one suspect. Several witnesses claimed to have seen the Beaumont children in nearby Cully Reserve, accompanied by a tall man in his 30s. The children seemed to be having fun. However, the man was acting cold, asking if anyone had seen the children's money. But the parents were skeptical. Their oldest daughter was shy and cautious, and she didn't believe that they would go with the strange man willingly. A nearby shop owner claimed that Jane had bought a meat pie from him, which would have cost more than her mother had given her that day. Who was the mysterious man? Sightings of the children continued for the next year, as people reported seeing them in unusual situations, such as one woman claiming she saw them entering an abandoned house. As the case attracted international attention, a Dutch psychic named Gerard Coisset arrived in Australia claiming to offer help. However, he was largely seen as an ineffective nuisance, falsely identifying a burial place where nothing was found. It would not be the last hoax, nor the most unsettling.
Why would you do that, bro?
The Beaumonts received 2 letters, one claiming to be Jane and the other the kidnapper. The writer offered to exchange the children, but the handover turned out to be a fake. Another letter soon arrived claiming that he had abandoned the exchange because a detective was present. The letters would eventually be identified as fakes decades later.
How?
The mystery would drag on, and there would be many suspects. Who took the children? The police focused their investigation on known bad actors, many of which were already in prison. Evan Spencer von Eynon was serving a life sentence for murder and reportedly had information about the Beaumonts, but he refused to talk. Arthur
Bro was trying to use
was
his
married to
leverage.
two sisters in 1998, but died while awaiting trial and was considered too old to be the man who was seen. Other suspects were either too young or too old to be the man seen, or weren't likely to be near the site of the disappearance. The most credible suspect was Harry Phipps, a local factory owner and social figure who was estranged son, identified him as a possible suspect in 2013. Almost 10 years after Phipps's death, he claimed to have seen the children with his father decades before. Two other witnesses claimed Phipps had hired them to dig a hole in the factory yard. This led to the excavation of the factory, but no remains were found, and there would be no closure for anyone involved. To this day, the case is considered unsolved. Both parents have since passed
Oh
on,
wow,
eventually divorcing and living separately as they tried to escape the scrutiny
that's
of the
tough,
case.
man.
Over the years, more and more Australians claim the children should never have been unsupervised. And with a case this prominent and this controversial, it's inevitable that conspiracies would emerge, with people claiming that the children had been kidnapped to New Zealand by a religious cult. Even more upsetting to many was when a newspaper published computer-generated pictures of what the children would look like as adults in 1990. It ripped open the still unhealed wound in the fabric of Australia.
That's some.
And today, it remains completely unsolved. Which of these cases do you think was the most disturbing?
Hey man, that's gonna do it for this video, bro. Why would they do the AI shit, bro? I mean, it's more common nowadays. They do the AI stuff where it's like this is what the person like would look like right now if they went missing in like 2000, like say 2006 or something. Like they do the AI, like this is what the person would look like now. So try to see if they could recognize them in public or something. But hey man, that's gonna do it for this video, man. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Which one was the craziest missing persons case? Um, I'm gonna go with like. Nah, not the judge because honestly, the judge one seems pretty simple, bro. He obviously crossed some bad apples and didn't want his family to have to deal with that. So, I mean, I feel like that's probably the one I know is like the most likely to happen. So that's why I wanted to say it was crazy. I honestly just wanted to say it was crazy because I love mob stuff. So, I mean, that was my favorite case to hear about, I guess. But I want to hear what you guys think is your favorite case. Do you think any of them are going to get solved, man? If you guys like these kinds of videos, let me know in the comments more, and we'll keep bringing these story times for you. Infographics has been stepping up, man, posting good videos, man, good content, and I'm here for it. So I'm going to bring you guys as much content as possible. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, man. I appreciate you tuning in with me, and as always, see you in the next video.